Hey everybody, welcome to Hit Rewind. This episode we're discussing the comic... No, we're not. Hey everybody, let me rewind. We're discussing the video games of 1995. My brain just apparently just left the room for a while and says, sorry, I had to pee. I'm Michael, that's John, the embarrassed one of my behavior.
What am I ever going to do with this show?
Someone said that we're the only podcast they've ever listened to that comments on the commentary. I don't know. I just like I've never liked the highly processed feel of some podcasts. I don't have the money for it or the time anyway, but I kind of like the raw, like almost like do-it-yourself punk version of podcasting, where it's just like whatever flies, where it's fair game.
There's some fun to it, yeah. Just kind of being willy-nilly, and whatever I say, I will live to regret, I'm sure, at some point.
Every once in a while, I will edit something out. I have gone a little overboard a few times and stuff like that, or just flummox some nonsense and had to start over an episode or something like that. All right, so this episode is going to be a little bit different because the video game world is expanding exponentially during this time period. So I am taking some of the segments instead of putting it all on John's shoulders. And it's funny, as we go along, it is going to switch a little bit because a couple of the legacy, consoles are going to fade away. Or they just start up and fail instantly, and then I take over for like the newer consoles.
What's kind of funny, too, is you probably have, like the assignment that I have, you probably actually have a little bit more notes on, because this year is not that good for some of these legacy consoles.
Yeah.
Not that there are amazing games, a couple of amazing games that came out and worth noting, but shit, I was going down the list for some of these ones.
Well, do you notice that it was much like the comic segment we did for this year? Everything's going through a big transition. They're having the big fallout from the speculation market in comic books, so there's a lot of companies falling apart, and Marvel's on the verge of bankruptcy and stuff like that, and then just creatively bankrupt. And then that's what you have going on with video games, is you have a lot of guys that are just I don't know, it's kind of like the way it is now with the whole Kickstarter consoles. It's been for like the last 5 or 6 years, just like everybody's throwing their hat in the ring, but they're not going to last very long.
Yeah, it's like 95, it's not that there weren't games that came out in 95, but it's like, do I really want to talk about, Real Monsters?
Yeah.
Or bass fishing, or, there's... like the endless stream of Madden games and whatnot.
Right.
Yeah, it's like there are games. Heck, I even had one game that I was going to talk about, is mostly just because of nostalgia for me, because it wasn't really well received, but it was fine. I dropped it, but yeah. Breath of Fire 2 is fun.
Well, and for me, just like comic books, I feel like 93, 95-ish is the down period for me. I was really getting hardcore into comics and stuff like that, and getting ready for college and other things. I started working, so I wasn't really paying attention to what was going on in either world. It would be in college where I would rediscover both.
Yeah, that's what happened with me too. Is when we get to the comics for '96, there's gonna be a lot of stuff that I've only, like, in the last few years, or some post college, but stuff that I didn't read at the time.
Yeah. All right, so let's get us started with the legacy consoles.
Okay. We'll start off. There were a few little businessy type things that happened. There were a couple of new companies that formed. Remedy, the people who made the first 2 Max Payne games.
Okay, I was like, who is that?
And most recently, Control. They got formed. And also BioWare, one of my favorites. Guys who did Baldur's Gate, Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic, the Dragon Age and Mass Effect franchises. Both of those 2 companies ended up forming this year. There was another one, but they literally made bullshit games that no one knows or cares about. So, also the first E3, the Electronics Entertainment Expo, was held. Basically, video games were at trade shows like CES, but they were kind of like thrown off to the side with like the porn vendors and stuff. And so a lot of these people kind of were getting a little pissed off and just kind of being thrown, just like thrown a bone. Porn. And they decided, you know what? We're tired of this. Let's actually the business is booming. We're actually a force. We should have our own trade show. So they started E3, and they weren't really certain how sure it was going to be, but it blew up. I mean, it's like it's been a mainstay of video game news for years up until COVID kind of killed it.
Yeah. I think this year they're not even doing it because they just didn't get enough going.
Yeah, it's been canceled. Everyone's got their own. Everyone has their own directs now. There's no point in E3, and it's kind of a shame because there was some interesting stuff. You should, listeners, look up old E3s like the Wii Music debacle, or I mean, there's some fucking moments that you just sit there and go, Mad TV, Saturday Night Live couldn't do this stuff. They wouldn't dream of doing something as stupid as this. And yet, these people are sitting out there doing it.
I can see the same thing happening to Comic-Con. It's become a bloated beast that's just out of control, and I can see Marvel and Warner Brothers having their own separate conventions, like the way that Disney does with like Star Wars Day and stuff.
Yeah, well, it's Comic-Con's now all about movies.
Yeah. Well, that's going to back off too. I think the whole thing is just going to change. I would guess right now that maybe 5 years from now, Comic-Con will not look like the way it does now. The big corporations are going to take it out because they know they can make more money just setting up their own events, and then it's just going to go back to being about comic books.
Hey, I went to Comic-Con twice. Once in really the last year, you could actually stand in line and get in. Like, seriously, after that, pretty much every single time you wanted to go, you had to book your tickets like the day that you already bought tickets for the that year's show.
Okay, what year was the last year you went?
That was in 2005, maybe.
Okay, right before the big blow up from all the companies were starting to take their movies there.
Yeah, I also got heat stroke in that line, so
yeah.
I got to see some stuff. I got the last Yeah, I'll say it was whatever year that the last trade for Strangers in Paradise came out. It's that year.
Okay.
They picked it up there and got it signed by Terry Moore.
When I was working for this retail company, they told me since I was working in the electronics section that I would go down to the electronics convention. That's what my boss was telling me what it was, but then the manager of the store was like, convention? No, it's a product knowledge. And I was like, what's that? And no one really told me, and I got down there like, oh man, it's going to be like a little miniature E3. I'm going to see all these video games and new it's just low-rent garbage that our store could afford. They got wholesale from, okay. It was so bad. You know those little knockoff handheld kind of things you would see where they had 250 games, but they're all like, at best, old phone games or something like that. That's the kind of console stuff we would get, and I was like, fuck!
Oh, no.
It was so low rent that Mill Creek Entertainment stopped showing up.
Well, my last little bit of businessy stuff is GameFAQs debuts on the internet.
I don't know what that is.
It's this text-based online strategy guide source. Basically, people would write their own strategy guides and then post them on there.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't realize this is how early that site came up, because I became aware of it in the early 2000s. And it was really good. Like, you could actually get some very detailed, well plotted out, strategy guides for all kinds of games. And, it's like, it's text only, so there's no pictures, so they're not showing you like you're not getting graphics of but people would actually make text maps of stuff if you're like playing an RPG. It's like, here's a basic layout of here, you want to find your secret item, and they set it up there. It's like, the time and dedication some of these people did was remarkable, and I believe the site's still up too.
Huh. That's amazing in this day and age where that stuff just kind of dies real fast.
Yeah, well, it's like, I believe some of the people there ended up like going to IGN, and being part of their staff too. So if it is generally still around, Game FAQs, take a look. It was really cool in the day. Now, PC gaming. There was a lot of good stuff that came out for the PC. I was genuinely surprised because I've played most of them and kind of forgot that this is when they hit Star Wars Dark Forces.
I remember that one. Yeah, this just seems to be when consoles were kind of fading away and PCs were red fucking hot and they were like dominating the sales.
God, they're honestly, with the exception of one game that I'm going to talk about for the consoles, basically all the PC games I'm talking about are the best, some of the best stuff that came out. And I even dropped some things from this list because it could have just been me talking about PC games like Phantasmagoria and stuff like that.
Oh,
too.
God, I remember that. Yeah, my best friend was hardcore on PC games. Did we already discuss Full Throttle?
We did not. That did come out this year.
Okay.
I dropped it only because there's a better LucasArts game that came out that same year.
Yeah, I just remember loving Full Throttle so much. But go ahead.
But Dark Forces, it's a first-person shooter-style Star Wars game. It's actually set before the original trilogy, and you're a mercenary working for the rebels who are you uncover the Empire's Dark Trooper project, and you got to stop it. And yes, it's a Doom clone, but it's one of the best Doom clones.
Yeah.
You had a far wider range of vision because you actually could look up and down and stuff. They actually gave you that range of movement. And the levels themselves were actually built with multiple floors. So you had a lot more range of movement and actually strategy. And, hell, they even had like better texturing and, fog effects and stuff. So you actually had an environment that you were actually having to use to your advantage in one of the first times in first-person shooter history. It's a hell of a game. It still is. It kind of looks a little goofy now, but
yeah, I was gonna say a lot of the first-person shooters from back then have to be remastered. They look terrible.
Yeah, but it's still a really well one. A better-looking first-person game was Descent.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, it was this flight sim where you had to clear out all these mines from this computer virus that's infecting all these worker robots and stuff.
Was that also a PlayStation game?
It was. You
Okay.
have a full 3D environment, and you had just about a full 360 range of movement. And there were some limitations to it, but at the time, you pretty much had full 360 movement in these environments. You're flying around in effectively zero gravity, going up, down, every direction you can imagine, trying to find these things. And again, I'll go quote-unquote Doom clone, because all first-person shooters at the time were effectively Doom clones. But considering that you're flying a ship through these environments looking for your color-coded, key cards to get you in these things and all that stuff. But this game, not the first, because Doom 2 had this, but it had multiplayer modes. But one of the things that was really cool about it was there were co-op modes, along with just deathmatch and all that kind of stuff. So Descent, I was really happy that I had a PC that could actually run Descent, because that thing was a fucking juggernaut of a game.
Yeah, I could not. We rented it from the video store, and I could not get it to play for anything. And then I got to play, a year later maybe, or less, with the PlayStation.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is there was a decent enough port of it, but oh god, I hate this so much, because the people who say this stuff are douchebags. But it is a game that is basically, it is a PC game, and it should be that, because running on a high-end one, it's going to be the optimized version of it.
Oh, okay.
But god, that makes me feel dirty, because quote-unquote PC Master Race fuckers. God, I hate them so much.
I've never even heard that before, but that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
That's the thing. There's a lot of people who will defend PC gaming as being the ultimate expression of all video gaming period. And how you must only play games on PC.
Oh, like people who say you have to watch movies in 4K. I'm like, I don't want to buy a 4K player. Leave me alone.
Yeah, but okay. Moving on. Command and Conquer, the first game in the long-running RTS series. It's set in this alternate world where there's two factions fighting over this substance called Tiberium. It's fun. It's a really good real-time strategy. It's not my favorite because I'm not as big a fan of military-style ones.
Yeah.
But this is the series that gave us the spin-off series Red Alert.
Which I was obsessed with. Completely and utterly obsessed with.
Yeah, and the third one especially is the one that has Tim Curry.
Spies!
Yeah, spies! Seriously, we're not even doing it justice. Look up Tim Curry Red Faction 3 and just watch him not only chew the scenery, chew everything around him, the chair that he's on, everything. It's not his best performance, even in the most, oddball, over the top that he can be. But it's so fucking fun to watch.
What do you think his most over the top? I think it might be Congo.
Yeah, definitely Congo. Although, in his most entertainingly bad, what is it? Down Periscope, I think.
No, it's McHale's Navy. That was my second choice for most outrageous performance from him.
Yeah, where he's the second best terrorist in the world. Okay, Warcraft 2 came out, which, okay, I wrote this on my notes for a later game, but you know what? I'll bring it up here. I think I've said this a lot, where how do you make a sequel to a game that is basically already a classic? How do people really one up themselves, or at least try to stay on the same level? And like Doom 2, like one of the games we'll talk about a little bit later, this takes everything that was really good about the first one and improves it.
Yeah, it's hard to reinterpret. How do I say it? Like, reconfigure how you do a sequel. Like, people were fucking furious about Legend of Zelda 2 because it was a side-scroller and it changed the whole format and it pissed people off. It's hard to be innovative and make advances on a franchise to make it better without alienating the original fans.
Yeah, and that's always the thing that every game sequel features is we want to make sure that we can grow as a brand, but we don't want to necessarily alienate anyone.
Right. Well, it's the same way with movies too, though.
True. With anything.
Yeah.
And one thing that
New Coke.
but one thing that Blizzard did was they implemented a thing called the Fog of War, and it basically all you can see on your map is areas that you've explored. So you can, you have to go out and find things. You have to find your resources. You might accidentally come across your opponents. Now you've got a little villager who's now stuck in a fight with some soldiers. Oh shit, what are you going to do? It brought this entire level of, especially when you're playing multiplayer, you don't know where your opponent is on the field. You don't know how far. They could literally be right next door to you, and you would never know until someone in a different, I say in a different color uniform, but you're playing humans versus orcs, so you're playing an orc, all of a sudden some human shows up. Oh shit, I've got competition now. My god, Warcraft 2 is... I know people love to lionize 3, but 2 is really where that series kind of peaked. Even with World of Warcraft being the juggernaut game that it became later on down the line, 2 I think is everything Blizzard did firing on all cylinders perfectly.
Yeah, I've never played any of them, so I have no comparison to each entry. I've seen the movie, and I didn't get the movie at all. So,
and finally for PC, The Dig.
Oh God, I remember that one. That's a Lucasfilm, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is why I kind of dropped Full Throttle for this. Partially because I own this over Full Throttle. I played Full Throttle years later. But yeah, this is a serious puzzle game from LucasArts. Now, it was originally conceived by Spielberg as an episode of Amazing Stories, and then a movie. But the project itself would have been way too ambitious to do at the time.
Yeah.
I would love to see them tackle this now. Technology has
Right.
passed.
Well, they keep bringing it up every few years, like it's in development.
Yeah, it's not even just like it's caught up to do it. You can easily do this film. A student with their iPhone could make this film now.
Yeah, true.
With what they needed to do, but basically a crew. This ended up getting shelved until years down the line, in which a crew of scientists land on this asteroid that had been hurtling towards Earth and then just kind of stopped. And they discover that's actually a transport to another world. And once they get there, they're now trapped, and they have to find how they can actually get back to Earth. And there's a lot of stuff with resurrection, like weird resurrection juice and stuff. And it's, this was a success, but it was also really fucking expensive to make. I mean, you had like Robert Patrick as one of the voices. I forget the other actors, but Robert Patrick was the person they really touted as, we have Hollywood actors.
Yeah, well, I think one was Wing Commander 3 when they had all the motion, like that film motion. It had like Mark Hamill and Malcolm McDowell.
That was like in '94, I think.
Okay, so they've already basically made like, okay, this is how it's going to be. That was like the Shrek of that world, because after Shrek, all of a sudden every movie had to have celebrities. It was like that with video games. They had to start having celebrity voices to give it some sort of like critical credibility. I mean,
we also had Mark Hamill was also in like Gabriel Knight games, which I feel bad because I was going to bring up one of the Gabriel Knight games in this year, but it was the second one. So it was like I forgot about the first game.
I don't even know those games. I've never even heard of it.
Supernatural Mysteries.
Okay.
They're okay. They're okay. But the problem is this thing was so expensive. It was basically thought of as a commercial failure.
Yeah. Well, I feel like LucasArts got nervous after this too, and they started focusing more on the Star Wars brand.
Yeah.
And only the Star Wars brand.
And it's like young John did own this, and this game is pretty fucking hard. It's not Myst level difficult, but it's close enough that I did manage to get to a point of the game, and I couldn't get any further. And it took me forever to, it's like it took Wikipedia, honestly, for me to actually learn what happens at the end of this game. I've never actually beaten it, but I genuinely support if someone actually genuinely wants to make this into a movie, I genuinely support it. I think it would be a great movie. So, next up is Sega.
Saturn!
Oh, Sega. Now, okay, Sega's offerings are a bit sparse because they were, Sega fucked up the Saturn launch.
Yeah, well, 95 is flat out the year where everything just went fucking wrong.
Yeah, well, no, they fucked this up. Remember how I mentioned E3?
Yeah.
One of the things that was mentioned during Sega's little press conference during it was the release price and date that they were going to release the Saturn, which was the day that they were announcing it. So, how exciting. They were going to, they were getting the drop on Sony, and they're going to have their system in the stores first. Except no one bothered to actually tell the retailers that. So some places got Saturn, some places didn't. Retailers were very obviously taken by surprise because all of a sudden they had a box of stuff that, like New York, all of a sudden some asshole in LA is telling you, oh, by the way, this is for sale now. We didn't bother to tell you anything about this, so Congratulations.
Yeah, there's no marketing buildup. It's just gonna sit on the shelves, and no one knows what the fuck it is.
Yeah. And retailers like Best Buy, Walmart, and KB Toys just at that point, because they were blindsided by everything, just dropped Sega completely.
Wow.
Yeah. And this also gave Sony the edge because they were able to not just flat out kill the competition by announcing the PlayStation $100 cheaper. Because it was Saturn was like $400, and like I believe the press conference for the PlayStation, the guy just comes out and says, $299.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's, it's like, well, and also there are mostly shitty games that came out for the Saturn at that point.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of developers had left them, and same thing for Nintendo. They're both going through a rough period because developers are leaving to go over to PlayStation because it was cheaper and easier to get into. And the only games I ever remember playing on the Saturn was it Dragoon Knights or something?
Oh, Panzer Dragoon.
Yeah, and then there was Knights, correct? That was the other one?
Well, there was there was Knights, which came out in '96.
Okay.
That's one I can't wait to talk about because that one I have good memories of. I never owned this console. Yeah. I didn't know anyone who owned this. Literally, the only Saturn stuff I've played is either from Retrospect Collections or in-store demo units.
Yeah, well, my roommate, my last year of college, had one, and we played Scud the Disposable Assassin, which, if you play the PC version, is nothing like the Saturn version. The PC version sucks dick. The Saturn version's fucking awesome, but good luck finding that released again.
But basically, like, for the releases, you had Virtual Fighter, which, okay, that's a decent port. Clockwork Knight, which was really just apparently too short of a game. Rayman, which, the first game was fine. It showed up on a bunch of other stuff. It became a better franchise later on. Gex, which was also on the 3DO and was a mascot platformer where you're a wisecracking gecko. It's basically well known for the third game where it's implied that he's fucking a chick.
Yeah. I only know it was voiced by Dana Gould, who's my favorite comedian, so.
Yeah. And you mentioned Panzer Dragoon, which is really the highlight. Really, yeah, the highlight of the entire console. Where it's a on-rail shooter where you're flying this dragon in a post-apocalyptic future, and it spawns sequels, but no one really knows this franchise, which is kind of a shame. It's a hardcore, cult classic game, and it's really fucking good. There's a remake currently out on current consoles, and it's okay. But for PlayStation, for Sega in general, Phantasy Star 4 came out, which it's mostly notable for a couple of things. It's an okay game. It's mechanically basically similar to all the other games in the franchise, but it did something that was kind of cool, which was the cutscenes for it were kind of presented in this manga-esque style. So you actually kind of had motion while you're doing these cutscenes. So instead of just seeing static images of people talking, or it's like your sprites on the screen, maybe walking back and forth as they talk, you're getting panels that pop up.
Oh, is it like those animated comics that got popular like 10 years later?
Kind of, yeah. So you kind of had this, you had the illusion of movement because you're now being presented with, someone says something and there's a reaction shot, and then, something else happens, and it's kind of, it was a cool presentation, actually. And the only other thing that was really of note was the game was damn near $100.
Whoa.
Yeah. And the box art was actually, the U.S. box art anyway, was done by Boris Vallejo.
Nice.
Yeah. So, if you don't know, he did a lot of the Conan artwork, Tarzan artwork. He did the artwork for like the first two National Lampoon films. He does a lot of he's basically like Frank Francetta sort of style artwork.
Right,
so
right, yeah.
high fantasy, kind of slightly erotic.
Roger Corman used him a lot. He would buy art from him that had nothing to do with the movie, but it was eye-catching as hell, and it helped sell copies of it on VHS.
Yeah, he's a very distinct style in that sort of fantasy artwork, and it's really cool artwork. It really is. And basically, I felt cheated at the time, but shit, it's $100. I get why I never had a copy of this. Playing it years later, I don't feel that cheated, but there's a good reason why this series needed a shot in the arm, and it became rebooted. The Phantasy Star franchise got rebooted in the 2000s as a MMO series, and like a lot of things that Sega did, it was ahead of its time. But we'll get to that later. Ristar. Have you ever heard about this one?
That sounds like a game from the 80s. Am I wrong?
You're probably thinking of Sinistar.
Oh, okay. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, Ristar. He's a little star-looking character. It's actually a really good mascot shooter. It's supposed to be like the game that was going to take over for Sonic, because Sonic's dead. We've done Sonic and Knuckles. We've
right.
kind of ran everything we could do into the ground. Let's do a new one. It wasn't done by the Sonic team, even though it's lumped in with a lot of like Sonic style games. And
like the collections. Okay.
Yeah, and it kind of looks like it. It has very much that color and feel to it, but it wasn't done by them. It is really good, but because of the Saturn launch and all that stuff, it just kind of got buried and kind of forgotten, which is a shame because, okay, it steals from Earthworm Jim, it steals from Dynamite Headdy, it steals from Sonic, but it does it all really well. It's a nice, really good, fun game, and I feel bad that it just never got the recognition it deserved at the time. What did get recognition at the time, though, was Vector Man.
Oh my god, this is another one of those we were so totally obsessed with. Like Comic Zone, I feel like we played it a bunch, but never got very far.
No, because the game fucking blows. Okay, let's. I will tone that back.
Its style is awesome looking, though, but
yeah.
Now that I've gotten older and I got motion sickness problems, the game makes me nauseous.
Well, that's the thing, is this game, it was going to be Sega's answer to Donkey Kong Country, and they got this group called Blue Sky Software, who had made like the Jurassic Park game for them a few years earlier, and they delivered something. Technically speaking, this is phenomenal. Like, the game runs at 60 frames per second, which is insane, especially for that time.
Mm-hmm.
The Vector Man character was made up of 23 individual sprites instead of just one, and they're all programmed to move in unison. The soundtrack's actually pretty damn good, but the game isn't fun.
Yeah, it's torturous. Just trying to get beyond like level 2 was hell on earth.
Yeah, it's a neat game to look at. It's a neat game to try out once. But, yeah, they made a sequel to it, and this thing did well. Like, people saw this thing I think everyone wanted it because it just looked so damn cool.
Yeah, I feel like Genesis was really, like, hitting it on the head with, like, style and technology with the Genesis. But not so much anything else.
Yeah. And you mentioned Comic Zone, which also came out this year, and it's the last one for Sega. Basically, an artist gets trapped inside his own comic book, has to find a way out. It's a hell of a concept, and the idea that you're like jumping around or tearing through the comic panels themselves, it's like you're a John Byrne era She-Hulk.
Yeah.
Everything about that stuff is really cool. The problem is the game is stupidly difficult.
Oh my god, it's so fucking irritating.
Yeah, and the controls suck.
Yeah, every time I play both of those games, I think, like, nostalgia starts, like, get me drunk, and then I realize, like, 10 minutes later, it's like, oh, this is not what I wanted at all.
Yeah. Now, it's like, I remember getting further in this when it came out, but as a grown adult, I can't get through the first stage.
Yeah. Well, I'm that way with Earthworm Jim, too. The games are so hard now.
Yeah, it's like, I lost those skills. And now moving on to Nintendo, like Sega, there's not a whole lot really worth mentioning, but there was Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Kong Quest, which we managed to actually make a game that's as good as its original. They made it more difficult because people were, older gamers were whining about it, which is kind of stupid because at the same time it has Diddy Kong as the main character, so it kind of feels like they're trying to target a younger audience. But they made the game harder.
Yeah, I don't remember this one having as big of a splash as the first one.
Oh, it was actually the second best-selling game of '95.
Well, that tells you what I fucking know.
Yeah. Now, what was the first best-selling game? Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island.
Not Killer Instinct.
No. But I'll be honest, I genuinely hate this game. And this was, especially at the time, this was the game that made me not like Mario games. Now, in concept, the idea of a Yoshi-centric game isn't terrible. But they decided on this coloring book aesthetic for the environment. They made Yoshi just vocalize constantly, and he's annoying. And then they added Baby Mario, the annoying, shitty, screechy Baby Mario.
I remember that, yeah.
Now, okay, over time, I have gotten, getting older, I have kind of laid back some of my things. I'm not a shitty teenager anymore. The coloring book aesthetic isn't that bad. It's actually it is kind of a neat thing. I like the idea that it is a little bit more puzzle-oriented and exploration-oriented. That's okay. But fuck, is this game really fucking annoying. It is not... it is not that good. People really want to raise it up really high, and it is not as good as Mario World. It is not as good as any of the previous Marios. It's not even as good as any of the Game Boy Advance ones.
Wow.
It's nice. It's a little more relaxed game. That's cool. But I think people just really, the nostalgic goggles are really, really high on this one. And if they had just taken out the Baby Mario shit, I think it probably would have been a better game. And shit, even at the time and now, no one likes Baby Mario.
No one brings it up, that's for sure.
I'm not alone on this. I'm just more truthful in my my feelings about this. I guess my last
While we're speaking of Mario, can I say this real quick? This new nostalgia of the 1993 movie is fucking insane. It is not a good movie. It's not even a Mario movie. It's like a different movie with Mario pasted onto it. What are you guys doing?
Okay, well here I'll say this. I went to see the Mario Brother movie with my nieces on Easter. This will severely date it because by the time this comes out, everyone will have seen the Mario film 5 times. I will say this. It's a kids movie that's done by Illumination. It's fine. There's enough nostalgia, fun things in there that I can enjoy. It was definitely not made for me, and I'm one of those people who I will sit there and go, I will enjoy a fun ride, and it was, like I said, it was fine. That being said, all the stuff that was placed there just because we need to have a reference to Mario Kart, we need to have a reference to Smash Brothers, is so poorly done that it really just feels, it really takes, kind of takes you out of it a bit.
Oh, like the way it was with Ready Player One.
Yeah, well, even then, Ready Player One existed in a world where they flat tell you, this is a nostalgia-bait world. So you can accept the end battle of being just IP being thrown at a screen, as dumb as it can be. Why do the gorillas of the Donkey Kong Country need to drive around in go-karts? Because we need to do Mario Kart later. So that's the only reason why we have these Mario Karts, is because we're going to have a Mario Kart chase. Why do we have to have, why does we need to set up a Smash Brothers stage. Well, Mario has to fight Donkey Kong. Like, things, again, it's a kid's movie, and that's why I accept things, and I'm not trying to be shitty about it, but it's like, things happen, not because there's any logistic progression, it's because they have to happen, and there's no point. So it's like, the dichotomy of those two, you know, like the audience score versus critic score. Yes, critically, this movie isn't that good. It's dumb. It's made by Illumination, so it's not going to have the same thing that you're going to get out of like a Pixar movie.
Right.
Pixar
when Pixar was in their prime, I don't know what they're like now. I haven't seen any of their movies lately.
Well, they still do at least something there. It's like, you know, Illumination makes kids movies, like Disney Pixar makes family movies.
I gotcha. So you can get the parents interested too.
Yeah, so there's actually some substance in these other movies that Mario doesn't get. But then again, Mario is going to make like $8 billion, and it's going to have all the sequels and all that stuff.
Yeah, all we did is going to launch. That'll be the next wave. I feel the superhero thing is really dying down. Next is going to be video game movies, but not live action video game movies. Somehow it's going to be like, you know, the way it is with Sonic, where it's a mixture of both, or it's going to be straight up animation. Because people want video game movies that look at the fucking video game, man.
Yeah, it's like, my nieces enjoyed the film. My fiance enjoyed the film. You know, I'm not, you know, it's like, I enjoyed the film. Would I own it? No. And I think that's more of the metric that I'm concerned about is, would I buy this the second that I saw it on store shelves? No. So it's not as good a film as I would have wanted out of my Mario Brothers experience.
Yeah.
And again, take that as you will. I know people who would totally, it's like, that's immediately scoop up. And I'm not going to tell you you're wrong or anything like that. But finally...
Sorry, that was a big segue. That's my fault, people.
No. I had a feeling I was going to talk about the Mario movie. My number one game of all time, which is occasionally tied with Final Fantasy VI, although sometimes it does not knock that one down to number 2, is Chrono Trigger.
Chrono Trigger. I always remember that from the commercial.
It's a game that was made by a quote-unquote dream team of creators. You had Final Fantasy creator Hironobu why can't I say the name? Sakaguchi, Dragon Quest creator Yujo Horii, and Dragon Ball creator Akira Toriyama, working in collaboration. It has the perfect blend of compelling story, amazing gameplay, outstanding music courtesy of Yasunori Mitsuda, and with additional music from Final Fantasy composer Nobuo Uematsu. And even the graphics on this game still hold up. It is still a good-looking game. And, I mean, you're Chrono, you accidentally discover time travel, and you now have to bounce back and forth along with your friends through time to stop the world from coming to an end. And this game had 12 endings.
Whoa.
It was based on when you actually fought the end boss. So you could, you know, say you don't complete all the stuff that you can do in the prehistoric times, and you choose to fight the boss. Now, instead of being descended from the cave people, you're now descended from the dino people, and you're now a lizard person. Or, you know...
Is this what Alex Jones was talking about the whole time?
Now, spoiler alert for a 30-year-old game. What if you don't swap Chrono out for the Chrono dummy during one of the important fights near the end of the game? Well, now that you've stopped the world from ending, all your characters now decide that we have to now save Chrono. It's like, yeah, your main character can die and stay dead throughout the rest of the game. It's like there's a shit with a new game plus. If you have everything you need, you can fight the end boss at the very beginning of the game. But you only have 2 characters to do it with. And if you manage to do that, you actually get like a secret ending that is all the creators talking about making the game.
That's bananas.
It is brilliant. It is... People have been trying to get this game remade for years, and it just never come around. They did make a sequel to it, and it's trash. Oh god, Chrono Cross. It has wonderful music, but fuck, is that game terrible?
Oh, is it because it's too difficult or just structurally terrible?
Structurally terrible, mechanically terrible. Storyline makes no sense. It's only the most tangentially tied to the first game. It's not even set in the same world. Like, if you look at the maps, they are not even the same damn maps. Why are you trying to say this is a sequel to a game when you don't even have the same fucking map? Okay, but that is it for Legacy.
Okay, so over in... Now, I don't have a whole lot. You took a little bit of my stuff, man. I had E3 and BioWare, and I want to mention Rayman real quick, because that was one of the early... I think maybe the first PlayStation title that we ever played. My best friend's sister and her husband had bought one and brought Rayman down. I just remember being so adorable and cute. And this is when people were still obsessed with mascots. You know, we have Crash Bandicoot and stuff like that. And... you know, that's kind of dead now. We really don't have a whole lot of mascots from every single company. At least cutesy mascots. But I always remember, like, he would open his mouth, whatever, and go blah, 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 blah. But this is like the year of non-stop fighting games in arcades, but also, like, now it's getting closer and closer to release date of arcade and console. I mean, it seems like it was a couple years or maybe a year, whatever. Now it's almost day and date.
Pretty much, yeah.
They don't look as good, of course, but go ahead. Sorry.
Well, it's like, or you still get like a year delay. Like I think like Tekken games would be a year in the arcades, and then they'd show up on like PlayStation like the next year. So.
Yeah, and then, of course they don't look as good, but it was still like light years ahead of what we were used to. And so, I mean, I'm gonna throw like all the big games that were out. I don't have a whole lot to say about them. If you do, just stop me. But we have Battle Arena Toshinden.
That was fun.
Fun. I remember that one being that and Soul Calibur. But wait, Soul Calibur wasn't the first one, right? Soul Edge. I think.
Soul Edge, yeah.
Yeah, those kind of took what Tekken was doing, more of like the technical fighting, but giving it more sprites.
Yeah, it's like I'll say this, of between those two games mentioned, Soul Edge was better. Toshinden was fine. I mostly played on the PlayStation, not so much in the arcades, but. Yeah. That one was. That's a name I hadn't heard in a very long time.
Yeah. Mortal Kombat 3. I feel like this is peak Mortal Kombat right here. This is when we're all crazy about like all the new characters they're introducing and all their powers. We're all still hanging out at the bowling alley in the video store that had like a little area with arcade games. And then I feel like it's kind of... Which is weird because the movie comes out this year.
I wonder. It's with Mortal Kombat 3... I saw the film in the Mortal Kombat film in theaters, and they had like the little icons and stuff. I wonder how many. I genuinely tried to remember them and input them in on the game to see if we actually unlocked anything. I don't think they actually ever did. Yeah.
Well, do you remember like Mortal Kombat? What's the second one called? Annihilation, I think.
Oh. Yeah.
That's the one where they decided to stuff in like every single character possible, and it was already a mess of a movie anyway, and that they never actually finished. But you're like, oh god, this is a lot of cameos. Holy shit.
Yeah. Oh god.
Do you think the first Mortal Kombat holds up, or it's just like one of these things? Well, it's of its moment.
I do think it holds up. I do think it's still one of the better video game movies, but it's basically because it's just Kickboxer. You know, they took the bare bones story that is Mortal Kombat and made a bare bones Mortal Kombat movie where people are on an island fighting.
Well, I mean, if you want to go all the way back, that started with Enter the Dragon, because that story was taken and put in basically in Bloodsport, you know, and so every movie was kind of a repeat of whatever Enter the Dragon had going on.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, but you know what I mean. It's they took, like, as opposed to Street Fighter, which was its own bizarre, just off the rails, whatever the fuck it was. Mortal Kombat at least tried to, the first one anyway, tried to be nothing really all that much greater. It's like, does the CG hold up? No. But it at least maintained. That second film, though, God, my friends and I almost walked out of it. We did. stay through it, but we laughed at everybody in line because we had just sat there and went, "Wow, you people, you're stupid for waiting for this film."
Yeah, I remember we went like the second week or whatever, and we're just like, oh god, just end this already, please.
Yeah, well, I'll say this. Peak Mortal Kombat is Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, which was just basically everything thrown in.
Well, I'm talking popularity-wise. I feel like 95 is peak popularity.
Well, yeah. That's just it. It's like, yeah, at that point, that's as best as that game was ever going to be received.
Yeah.
Truly.
Street Fighter Alpha, I don't remember this iteration.
I don't like Alpha 1. Alpha 2, which is next year, is the one that I think is honestly really the pinnacle of all Street Fighters.
What's the difference in this one?
This was a little bit more manga influenced. You had like super special attacks and stuff, and it was quote unquote the prequel.
Okay.
So you had a little bit. They actually did have a story that really flowed through it. So it was kind of a Ryu versus Sagat game, even though you had all these other characters running around in it.
All right, so we have Tekken 2, finally looking a little bit better. So the first Tekken to me looks a hell of a lot like Virtua Fighter in its blockiness. I feel like Tekken 2, they really smoothed out a lot of the graphics and added more sprites to it. It was a little more animated.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where Tekken found itself. Because even then, Tekken 1 was, I don't want to say self-serious, but it was a lot more self-serious than 2. 2 started kind of getting a little bit more goofy, and then, when Tekken 3 rolls around, you got all kinds of crazy shit happening in that one.
King of Fighters 95. King of Fighters has its following, and just like most Neo Geo franchises, they have this cult following that's so devoted to it. But you really don't hear a lot about King of Fighters, and they're pretty damn good games.
Yeah, I know we've talked about them a bit, where it's like, the most recent one was like a 2021, I think?
Yeah, that's still going strong, yeah. I mean, for its following. They can't spend a lot of money on developing a new engine or anything like that, because they're never going to have enough people buying it, but still, it's still going.
Yeah, it's a franchise that I think what was it? I think it was more of Art of Fighting than the King of Fighters franchise, but same difference, really.
Yeah, God, there's so fucking many fighting games. I've been going through, there was probably 50 fighting games this year.
Yeah, there's quite a few.
Not much else. Arcade-wise, Time Crisis debuts, which is still, it's got a strong fan following. I'm trying to remember, is this the first arcade first-person shooter that had a pedal that you could, you had additional things besides just the gun? I feel like there's a pedal you could step on and turn to the side.
Yeah, I think this was the first one that did that, because to my recollection, you had all your other ones at this point really were just like the gun was just mounted to the thing. So you had the T2 game, you had Operation Wolf and whatnot.
Yeah, this one had the cord. I feel like there's a few, there was a 6-shooter game where it was on a really thick chain cord thing.
Oh, it might have maybe Bad Dog McCree or something like that.
Yeah. But this felt like it was a step in okay, we're kind of exhausted. How do we separate ourselves from the other first-person shooters in the arcade? And that seemed like a thing that they would do for a while. They would add new, even if it was just on the gun itself, they'd be like, oh, this one's a rocket launcher button, that kind of thing.
I'm checking one thing out just in case. You know what? Lethal Enforcers probably did it.
Oh, okay. No, you're right. That sucks on the arcade or the home version, by the way. Ugh.
Yeah, but yeah, it's I'm still there trying. It's going hold on. Well, there was Lethal Enforcers. When did that come out in relation to this?
I want to say it was the year before.
Yeah, this was 93.
Okay.
Which I don't know if it had the pedal, but at least it did have the loose gun.
Right.
That was definitely the thing.
The PlayStation debuts, of course, and it becomes known for The console that had lots of games where you could play with your friends, like competition games, like X Games and stuff like that. Demolition Derby was a big, or Destruction Derby was a big one. But I think the one franchise that really you got to get this system was Twisted Metal.
Oh God, yeah. I did not. I will be honest. I did not look up the launch titles or anything like that. Not because I remember them perfectly well, but God, I really should have, because there's so much I would have talked about. But yeah, Demolition Derby, Warhawk. It's like I didn't have it when it first. Oh, Ridge Racer, obviously.
Yeah.
But I had not the first run, but like maybe the year after thing that came with a demo disc that came with all sorts of games. So I played demos for things like Jumping Flash, which I think is amazing. Even though I never owned it.
God, I have a list here, but it is clearly the Japanese list because we didn't get any of these fucking games here. They're very, very particular. This is in January. Yeah, we didn't get these games. Most of them. I mean, we got Battle Arena to Shinden and stuff like that, but I'm trying to find in America. And I can't seem to find, even in Wikipedia. Come on, you stall while I look.
well, I've got a list.
Okay.
I've got A through L right now.
Whoa!
But it's like ESPN games. Like
we played the shit out of ESPN games. I don't remember the Pocket Station at all. Do you remember the console that it had? Like the fact that you could play CDs was a bonus, and that it had those memory cards.
Oh, yeah, the memory cards. Actually, one of the best things that you could do was, if you, depending on the game, and Ridge Racer was one of them, you could, once the game actually loaded, you could open the console out and swap out the game.
Right.
A music CD.
I forgot about that. Yeah, because you could play Ridge Racer or whatever, but with your CDs. I remember my best friend playing Du hast me a lot to Ridge Racer.
Yeah, it's like Ace. It was Ace Combat or Air Combat. I can't remember which one was one of the things. I'm going down the list right now, so I'm trying to. But go ahead and throw out some of the games, and hopefully.
Yeah, you've already mentioned there's Rayman, there's Ridge Racer, NBA Jam. That was a big deal. The tournament edition, we love that. And then the ESPN Extreme Sports, which we played all the time. I don't remember Power Serve 3D Tennis at all.
No, sports game. I didn't play that one.
Air Combat, Battle Arena, Toshinden, the Raiden Project, which was a combination of two Raiden games.
Yeah, right. Those which looked phenomenal on that.
Wow, I don't remember some of these at all. Like Total Eclipse Turbo and Street Fighter the movie, the game.
God damn.
One of those mocap games.
Yeah, that basically Street Fighter the movie, the game was what they wanted the original Mortal Kombat to be.
Yeah, because didn't they go to Van Damme first, and then he turned it down, but then took like an $8 million payday for Street Fighter?
Pretty much, yeah.
Wipeout, that was another one we played a lot.
Yeah, Wipeout is phenomenal. Movie people, if you don't know what Wipeout is, in Hackers, that is the game that they're playing in that hacker den that they're playing on the giant screen.
Oh, okay.
Spaceship racing game.
Did you know there's a Hackers 2, by the way?
I did not.
It's sort of... the MGM didn't keep the license for the sequel, whatever, and Dimension Pictures bought it, and they made a movie called Takedown, which is about like one of the biggest hacker takedowns by the FBI ever, and they slapped Hackers 2 on the front of it for a year, and then sold it internationally as Hackers 2, but then in America they sat on the shelf for I think another 5 years, and then was just sent straight to video as the Takedown.
Oh, I just noticed one thing that came out, and I didn't realize it was on PlayStation, but a game called Cyberspeed. I had that on PC. Yeah. It's a racing game, kind of like a cross between, like, say, Rad Racer, like all those old things, and Wipeout, because you would drive around these tracks shooting other cars and stuff in this little post-apocalyptic future racing game. It's not good, but God, do I have memories, especially of that soundtrack. The opening theme I loved, which is like a little wonky techno song.
Yeah, I remember 95 is such an interesting year too, because all of a sudden all the video shelves and movie theaters were filled with movies that had cyber or like, virtual and stuff like that. And, you had Johnny Mnemonic, you had Virtuosity, The Net, Hackers. I feel like there's another one in there. But, this is that whole like post Lawnmower Man effect where all of a sudden it's like, oh, people like the CGI virtual stuff,
Yeah, we don't understand computers, so they're just fucking magic.
Yeah. All right, so we are at the hour point. Anything else you want to say before we go?
Oh god, I can't wait till we get into like 96, because that's kind of where things pick up again. In all honesty, I said, just if anything, I could spend a long time just talking, just singing the praises of Street Fighter Alpha 2, if anything.
Okay. All right, everybody, you know where to find us. That is it, and have a good day. Whatever.
See ya.